your board gives me, perfection will be tolerated.
Wow. You know, everybody's looking at the clock. Yeah, I know. A minute to hit.
We're looking at the clock.
I am, because I want to get moving.
There you go.
Okay. Are we live now? Good morning. I'd like to call the meeting of the Board Operations Performance Committee to order. It is 9 o'clock on Monday, February the 10th. I would like Jeanette to call roll, please.
Okay, City of Carmel by the Sea.
Here.
City of Gonzales.
Here.
City of Kings. City of Marina.
Here.
City of Pacific Grove. City of Savannah.
Yeah.
Okay, very good, thank you. Public comments on matters not on the agenda. Members of the public may address the committee on any matter related to the jurisdiction of MST, but is not on the agenda. There's a time limit of not more than 3 minutes for each speaker. The committee will not take action or respond immediately to any public comments presented, but may choose to follow up at a later time, either individually, through staff, or on a subsequent agenda. Are there any public comments? Okay, so is there anyone on Zoom? I see none at this time. One more call for public comment. Okay, I'm going to close public comment and move on to the consent agenda. Do I have any questions about the minutes from the last meeting? From the committee? No? I'll open it up to the public. Is there anyone that has any comments on the minutes from the last meeting? Okay, close public comment. Okay, committee, do I have a motion for approval?
Motion to approve.
My second. All right, I have a first from Mr. Barrera and a second from Director Fisher. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, seeing none, motion carries. Moving on to action item number 4, review of operations performance. Mr. Sidoric.
Thank you. We have performance statistics through the month of December for the calendar year of December 2024. And in your operation or in your monthly report, you can see that ridership continues to grow month over month. So that's all good. And I did want to note this month, if you look at page 47 of the report, and we'll have a little update here later in this meeting. We had 0 preventable accidents for the whole month of December. So that's quite an achievement, given the challenges of operating a 40-foot long and more than 10-foot wide vehicle through our streets, some of them more narrow than others. So really wanted to thank our drivers and our training staff on that. You do see that at the last page of the report, I believe, is our open positions, and you can see that the bus drivers, we were had no need for any bus drivers as late as April 2024, and we've been experiencing some attrition, retirements. All these dang baby boomers are all retiring, and but we did have a class last week of, I believe, 9 coach operators started, and we also have some some maintenance professionals starting as well. So this is more of we're back to a more normal cycle. It's not like we have the ability to hire and have people in place and ready to go the minute somebody leaves. So we'll generally ramp up and have, 8 or 10 open positions, and then we'll hire a class, and, we'll go through that cycle. That is the normal
That's great.
cycle that we were experiencing prior to COVID and prior to, actually, pre-COVID, we were experiencing some difficulty hiring, but we seem to have that better under control. And so anyway, I wanted to bring those two items to your attention in the report. That concludes.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Mr. Barrera, Director Barrera.
Thank you, with the capital D. Mr. Sidoric, I don't know, if this is an okay question, but are we seeing any drivers from MV applying for MST?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that we always have.
Yeah.
So we had a greet class on their first day and introduced myself, and they introduced themselves. I believe at least 2 of them identified themselves as former
Mhm.
MV employees.
Oh.
Couple former Uber drivers, and a FedEx driver, and
Alright.
that's all I can remember at this point.
This is on later on in the agenda, so if you want to.
Yeah.
Yes,
on
staffing.
Oh,
the
sure.
the coach operator update.
Oh,
Thank
it
you.
is. Thank you.
I know that was next on the
Well, you-
agenda.
Yeah. Mine just rolled right in. Monday morning.
Really,
I'll take that one back.
that's okay.
Just save it.
Yes.
I know, any other questions for Mr. Sidoric?
No, hold it.
Hold it till the next item. All right. Moving on, item number 4.2, receive coach operator staffing update. And that is Ms. Halkin.
Good morning, committee members. Kelly Halkins, Chief Human Resources Officer. I'm here before you to give you an update on where we're at with the staffing of our coach operators. So currently, we have budgeted in the FY25 a total of 126. 116 are for the fixed route big buses, and 10 are for the suburban mini buses. We have currently 115 with the coach, with the class of 8 that started on Tuesday. That brings us to, I had this in my mind, 123 drivers, which puts us a little bit over. But due to attrition and retirements, it makes sense. You potentially always have maybe 1 or 2 operators that could be on performance glides out. So having a little bit over makes sense. Then as of January, we took down the coach operator job announcement off of our website. You may have noticed that. And in its place was replaced by the suburban board operator. That coach operator job announcement has been on our website and showing open since the beginning of time, probably the cooling of the earth. So moving it to having this new suburban operator job announcement is a first. We'll see how this works. This is, if you'll remember, we do have in our collective bargaining agreement with ATU an article just for the suburban board operator for the mini buses operating those. So we'll see how this works. We haven't actually used it before. And then the intention is that that's the new entry position. It's the suburban board operators, and then they can apply to become a fixed route or big bus operator. That's the intention.
Great.
So I'm here to answer any questions regarding the current staffing.
Director Barrera.
Ms. Hawkins, top of the morning to you. I'm just curious, I know you just mentioned a little bit, but when somebody gets hired for a smaller bus, do some of them have the same qualifications to be able to drive a bigger bus?
Yeah.
That is a great question. So currently how MV recruits is that they don't require, there's no requirement legally for an individual driving the mini buses to have a Class B or commercial license. They only have to have a Class C based on axle weight. That is under the federal motor carrier that determines if you are required to have a Class B or a Class C.
Yeah.
Given that we, as I mentioned, are not going to start operating the mini buses ourselves, MST, or the intention is not until Memorial Day weekend. So in our thought, Jared, my risk and safety manager, and I are working on what would that look like for a class. And so we've determined that based on the collective bargaining agreement and what was negotiated by, this is how far back that was negotiated with Dave Laredo, that we will be hiring people and then getting them the Class B, even though it's not required as for the minibus, so that we have flexibility to move people around.
Yeah.
And just one last question, if I may.
Yes, sir.
I know things are changing out there. A bus driver is not just a bus driver anymore. And I know we have an awesome safety manager, but how's the morale with do you ever take a pulse on how the drivers are doing with, there's a lot of tension. I know I've gone a couple of times out there and, to the, Metro in Salinas. And sometimes they have difficulties with some of the riders. Any idea? They feel supportive. Am I right? That's a question.
I think it depends on who you talk to. So really it's about educating individuals of what their rights are, what they can do, what they can't do, how they can better help themselves. One of the things that we're doing, we just started our new verification of transit training for 2025. And part of that is the workplace violence. And as part of that training, we are talking about, it really benefits them to stay behind their driver barrier, because that reduces passenger assaults on drivers significantly. 99% of the time, once they get out of the seat, they're going to get assaulted. So that's what the studies show. That's what the numbers are showing. APTA and a couple of other places, particularly UCLA, have done studies on driver assaults and what the numbers are and what the circumstances are. And so that's why they're saying, it's really better for the driver to stay behind the barrier, use de-escalation tactics, which we are talking with them about. We're having conversations with them about restraining orders, how that process works. New legislation was just introduced by with help from California Transit Association. Very excited about that. One of the things that they're looking at would be possibly, I haven't had a full read on it yet. Michelle might know a little bit more, but it looks like there would be some push to do a specific restraining order or some help in getting restraining orders for transit agencies with passengers that are difficult or have assaulted an operator. So that would be great.
Great.
Yeah, there's a few questions. Thank you very much. Can you tell us more about the applicants? Are they male, female, ages, all over the place?
It's a great mix. So there are males and females. Typically, the difficulty for females entering the workforce for a driver position is if they're a single mother, childcare issues. There's talk in the industry about what would that look like, about adjusting schedules. We've had those discussions. We're not quite there yet based on what our service requirements are. So, but we could potentially in the future. And then we have all ages. So we have young, we have old, we have, people, maybe this is their third career, second career. So they're not necessarily coming to us, not ever worked a job before.
Okay, that's rare for a young person who is just starting out in the workforce.
Very rare. Usually, if that occurs, it's because they have a relative already working here. And so that relative has encouraged them to apply.
Yes, and I might have mentioned it here earlier, I'm not sure, but I know IKEA decades ago, they made it easier for women by offering work hours starting after school started and be done before school ended. So it's, of course, it's especially important if there's a shortage. And I know that people have people have been here longer, they get the better shifts probably, etc. So that would be very hard to
Accommodate, yeah.
But there's
that's
potential that, in your agenda, the full board agenda in closed session, there is a ATU contract. So the collective bargaining itself can be a barrier, but maybe there are ways to work around that in the future.
Thank you.
And
Yes,
just in answer to your question, this most current class, I asked the new operators, what led them to MST? Why did they choose to apply? And of those who chose to answer the question to me, the vast majority of them were cited the benefits, either health or retirement, and it just wasn't something they had in their current position or not to the level that we offer. So people who are new to the workforce, especially very young people, don't think about that.
No.
So these are people who have other jobs and are now, realizing they need benefits and are coming to us. So that is an attractive piece of what we have to offer, seemingly.
Yes. Thank you.
anyone else have a question or comment? I'd like to open this up to the public. Is there anyone from the public that has questions or comments for Ms. Halkin? Seeing none in the chamber, seeing none on Zoom, I'll close public comment. Anyone else? Last call? No? Okay, thank
Thank
you,
you.
Kelly. All right, moving on to 4.3, receive update on transit services provided to the East Garrison community, and that is Ms. Obermeyer.
Good morning,
Good
committee
morning, Michelle.
members. Michelle Overmeyer, Director of Planning and Innovation. And I have Emma Patel, our Planning Manager, here to join me for some specific data slides. So we'll be talking about East Garrison. Next slide, please. So we'll go through the history of MST service to this community, the ridership on line 61, the multifamily housing that's taking place out there, and then we'll ask for any feedback you have as we move forward. Next slide. So for those unfamiliar, East Garrison is an unincorporated community between Salinas and the Monterey Peninsula on a portion of the former Fort Ord military base. It was originally envisioned to be a mixed-use urban village. And it has developed in phases, and currently it contains housing and recreational uses. Next slide. With funding from the military, MST was able to start service to East Garrison in the second half of 2019. There were 2 eastbound bus stops on Sherman Boulevard. And unfortunately, MST suspended service to East Garrison at the start of the pandemic, and the military funding never came back. Next slide. So the Better Bus Network brought us an opportunity to revisit service to the East Garrison community because we continue to get requests from that community for service. Line 61 is our veteran shuttle that connects Salinas to Marina. And the analysis during the Better Bus Network found that line 61 had several inefficiencies and could be improved with routing changes. And this opened up the possibility of serving East Garrison. Next slide. We looked at census data on seniors, veterans, people with disabilities during that evaluation. Staff proposed a reroute off of Blanco Road in order to serve the East Garrison community. The MST Mobility Advisory Committee was in support of the change. Next slide. As MST was preparing to install the new bus stops in East Garrison, we were notified by Monterey County staff that the Urban Services Agreement includes a statement that the East Garrison Homeowners Association, or HOA, was to be responsible for funding transit as part of the community vision for this was to be a cost-neutral development. So in other words, because East Garrison was developing in a sprawling manner, the county wanted to make sure that the cost of services would be covered. This requirement by Monterey County was recorded into the HOA's covenants, conditions, and restrictions, or CC&Rs. So it's been recorded. I presented this information to the HOA in October of 2022. MST moved forward with installing 6 bus stops in the community for the Better Bus Network. We billed the HOA for the cost of installing those. And we notified the HOA that they would be required to help fund operations per this county requirement. So the HOA paid MST the capital cost of installing those 6 bus stops, but promptly put a stop payment on the checks and they bounced. The HOA was informed that they could pay for operating transit by either paying for MST's actual cost to operate through the community or joining MST's group discount program, where they would buy some bus passes and distribute to any of their residents that were interested in riding MST. So to date, the HOA has not complied with the terms of the county agreement. We've contacted Monterey County staff several times for assistance, compelling them to comply with the HOA requirements, but we've been unsuccessful. So at this time, we'd like to reconsider our service to the community until the HOA can come into compliance with their requirements. But because there are some affordable housing sites there now, we want to be intentional about how we plan this. And so Emma will talk about the proximity to bus stops and the ridership activity we've seen.
Next slide, please. So there are currently 2 affordable housing developments in this area, each with 66 units. And Chispa has plans for a 3rd unit with 66 units. They're still looking for funding for this development, and having transit nearby helps with funding. The 2 stops we had in the East Garrison area before the COVID-19 pandemic had pretty low ridership. There was a total of less than 1 boarding per day at these 2 stops. And now, even though we have 6 stops, ridership hasn't increased very much, and we're seeing less than 2 boardings per day in total across all 6 stops. Next slide, please. So we're considering suspending 4 of these 6 stops. The 2 stops that would remain are at Sherman and Ord. So it's a set of paired stops, 1 on each side. Last month, these 2 stops had the highest ridership within the East Garrison area in their respective directions. And these 2 stops are within walking distance to all 3 of the affordable housing developments. Next slide, please. So for next steps, we'll be analyzing the runtime of line 61, and depending on the results of this, we may or may not draft some routing changes. In March, we'll be taking this to the MST's Mobility Advisory Committee and gathering some feedback. And in May of 2025, we're planning on suspending the 4 of the 6 bus stops. Any questions?
I have a couple. Just, and I don't know if it's in later in the presentation, but definitely would like to know how many units, total housing units are in this under the HOA?
That's a good question. We'd have to look into that. I don't know that.
Then the approximate cost of operations, is it just the amount through the section that they would be?
We were trying to move away from that because that is costly. That's going to be several thousands of dollars per month. So as far as their requirement for operating assistance, we would want them to join the group discount program. So they would purchase monthly bus passes. The minimum number is 5, and they would distribute to whichever HOA residents are interested in riding the bus.
I'll wait till the end of the presentation. I do have some more questions unless.
That was the end.
Oh, you're done. Okay.
Yeah, so we'll take feedback and questions.
I mean, go ahead.
So a few more things. One is the way it's written is the way it's written. And the way I read that is they owe us money. And we should continue billing. I know that doesn't.
Yeah, no, I've told them how much they owe. We've had, it's been silent from them, and even from the county. I copied the county administrative officer on this. We've even had Supervisor Askew send letters to or notes to the county administrative office, and we've just not we have yet to have a response, and we've been doing this for quite some time, and we've been, involved in other things, so it doesn't take, it's not always at the forefront of my mind, this issue, but, we've come back to it periodically, and there have been regular communications to them that they've been non-responsive, both from the HOA and from the county side of this. And MST's perspective, this is an issue between the county and the HOA. They need to figure it out.
And that's where I was getting,
And
that's where I was.
until they do, we want to not incur any additional costs into this HOA, but however, support the constituencies who depend on transit, who are nearby there. We don't necessarily want them to be punished for whatever lack of progress is being made between the county and the HOA. So this is kind of our way of walking that line to provide something to those who need it, and just pull out of the HOA, and we'll figure out, whether we need to take them to court, or we don't know what the solution is. They bounced the checks to us, reissued them and bounced them a second time, I think. Was
Just once.
just once? Okay.
So,
I thought there was a second run at that, but anyway.
no, and that's what I figured was where we're at. My only suggestion would be, I would continue billing as per the agreement.
Right.
But you're right, the county and the HOA need to get together and make the adjustment within the language, whatever that may look like, if it's a minimum amount of bus passes per month that they need to purchase, whatever agreement that is. But I think just continue billing for what is actually on the books to keep that record.
Exactly.
Is important.
Keep it record.
And even cutting back in this situation, if that language still applies to whatever portion that we're still doing, then bill for that as well. And I don't know if at some point it becomes like a bill you hand back over to the county for their failure to enforce the language that they approved, that they actually forced into the HOA. But that number, and it's frustrating because it's actual people are the only one who will be hurt by it. But the ridership still is only at the max 2 per day.
Average, yeah, it's pretty low.
And do we need to keep both of those open?
Would recommend it because of the low income housing there.
But on the map, it did show the one yellow dot was more centralized.
Can we go back a slide, please?
So the one that's closest to the mid-pen seems most centralized also, like, and I don't know what that distance would be to walk that.
Right, so we wanted to focus where we have pairs. The one that's closest to the mid-pen housing is just it's one direction.
Okay, I got that. All right, so it's just gonna be those two in there, so you have it both sides, in and out.
Yeah, in each direction, one going to Marina and one going to Salinas.
All right.
Question. Have we tried reaching out to Mid-Penn and Shispa?
I contacted them last month, I believe it was. They do have some residents that use the bus, and Chispa, we work closely with them. When they apply for grants, having transit nearby does help them be more competitive in their applications. So they're supportive of MST retaining some service there.
But now that the grants have been awarded and the housing is built or planned, are they invested in, are those two organizations invested in us having bus service?
Chispa's still working on the, it's kind of hard to see here, but the
Sure.
one that's in between is not built yet. They're still finding funding to construct that future phase.
Well,
Is your question that once they receive the grants and build their units, does Chispa still
it's sort of
advocate for transit?
it's sort of like Monterey. Monterey imposed these restrictions on this development to make the development seem green, presumably. And now, you know, I'm talking about the county, and now the county is sort of walking away from their responsibility to enforce the greenness of the provision, and greenness is my word, not anybody else's. So Monterey is walking away from the greenness that allowed the development to sort of pass muster and be constructed in the first place, that whoever's benefit it was that built it. So Monterey has walked away and has left MST sort of holding the bag. Well, Mid-Penn and Chispa are also, I mean, they're sort of the same. I mean, they rely on, you know, those two organizations rely on, you know, our service to get their funding. It's a little bit, I'm not going to say that word. It's a little bit strange that all these organizations need us to sort of be there. You know, they make sort of commitments to this organization that will be there to get whatever they want, whether it's the development being funded or whether it's the whole thing being built or the 3 buildings. And then everybody sort of walks away. Like once the first part of the work is done, once they get what they want, they're unwilling to enforce the other part of the agreement. Like those 2 developers should be helping us help their residents by helping us by interceding on our behalf to go to the county. Like it's in their interest of their residents to help us, and they should be helping us. Like we're aligned with them, and it's, you know, and you know, they should be partners in our
We've
effort
had
to
that
get this
discussion,
service.
as we were coming up with this presentation. Is what role, you know, and what influence do they have, if any, with the county in this area? So it is something that we've discussed, but we haven't effectuated.
Well, they're
Yeah.
pretty big. They're pretty big housing developers. I mean, they develop projects everywhere, not everywhere, but they develop lots of projects, and they're an important part. You know, they're an important part of the sort of housing community here in this county. And it seems like that if they made this sort of a priority to continue doing their work here rather than doing their work in Santa Cruz County or whatever the alternatives are, that there's some significant weight that could be put to bear on solving this, what must be for them like some tiny little issue.
Is there a question? Do we have any legal recourse? I mean,
Just go after the county.
yeah, I mean, not go after them, but perhaps write a letter or something.
I have written a
We tried
letter.
that.
I wrote a letter, gosh, we've had a number of appearances from the East Garrison Homeowners Association come to our board in the past, and I did send a letter and copy to the county administrative officer, you know, basically telling them this outcome. You know, they owe us for the installation of the bus stops, which isn't a lot of money. I mean, I don't even think it's more than $10,000. It's a small amount of money for the work that we performed, that they stopped payment on. And then B, we gave them the most minimal buy-in amount is if they purchased the
5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
5.
It
Like
was-
it's not like literally that's like
It was, so we again wrote
$200 a month.
wrote
or
this
something.
letter and said, you know, failure to meet these minimum requirements will result in loss of service and possibly future. You know, I left it open and vague about what other future actions we might take, but because I'm not sure what actions are going to be worth our while to do this, but in the interim, we think, as staff recommends, just pull the service out of there and do the minimum to provide the service to Chispa. It would be interesting though for these developments that depend on us to get funding in the future, do we look to some agreement? I don't necessarily want to be transactional with our support, but I hear what you're saying is is it a case where they need us until they don't need us anymore? They get their project built and move on. And so what sort of long-term arrangements do we ask for and require when these projects get built with our support? I don't think we do that now. We say, oh, this supports our board's goals of putting housing where there are low income people. So of course we support this. I don't think we follow it up in any case where we say, in exchange for the support, we want you to purchase this number of passes from us for your residents. Do we do that? Okay, I didn't think we did. Thank you.
So
Okay, Director Emilio has a question.
Maybe a couple of questions.
Yeah.
First thing is, what size bus? Is it one regular bus that goes through the development?
It's the mini bus, the
It's the
smaller.
mini bus, okay. Then, how much does the HOA owe us? I have another question after that.
Yeah, I'd have to get back to you. I don't
Okay, that's-
recall. We can come back and bring this back to the full board after we have some discussion here.
Okay.
I would just say the capital cost was about $800 of installing the 6 bus stops.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
And
It's
the
not much.
purchasing the 5 passes, you know, is minimal as well. If you were to count up the amount of actual service hours going through there on a daily basis and what our rate is, you know, fully allocated, it's a big number.
Would that
Um,
be like, is that? Would we be running
wait,
buses through there?
Wait.
I'm finished. That's all right, Jeff. Go ahead, Jeff. I have another question.
No, go ahead.
Okay, let me.
We want order here.
Yes.
The other, first of all, thank you for the presentation. Appreciate that. And did I hear right that the HOA is supposed to pay for the buses? Am I right on that, or did I hear that right?
They don't need to pay for the vehicles. It's transit service,
Uh-huh,
including transit stops.
okay. And then you could probably get back to us about how much does that run? That's what I'm curious about. The X amount of dollars run through East Garrison.
Yeah, we can come back with
Yeah.
that information.
The HOA, in another county I've been involved. I'm no longer involved in an HOA in another county. I'll tell you which it was, San Clemente County.
Uh-oh.
But I wasn't living there. But HOA, and I'm just throwing this out that it's expensive, HOA costs. I think we all know that. But at the same time, they have to pay. And that's the way it is. So if Carl, then if you get back to us.
Yeah,
how
we
much-
can-
I'm just curious how much they owe us.
Are you finished, Director?
Yes, I'm all done. Good, Jeff.
I just had a follow up on Joe's question, like, would we, like, if there wasn't any HOA involved, if none of this was involved and there were just houses there, would we be running that line through that development anyway? Like, is that because you talked about like rerouting the line through the development back, you know, during the Better Bus Network development days? Because it used to go, if I remember that, a couple slides ago, it used to go sort of around.
Yeah, we implemented service there due to the military that was paying us because they had a number of military families who were using the federal transit benefit, which was
To live here.
to live there, and then using the federal transit benefit, which was a benefit to pay us to provide them with service directly to the base. During COVID, they shut down the base, and then those programs were never reinstated. And so there is a population there. We have had public meetings. There were letters to the editors. There were some community requests for this service from members of the HOA to us. So it was clear to us afterwards, though, that once we implemented the service, and even though we made presentations to the HOA, as Michelle mentioned, once we started talking about them paying, the HOA members started to get organized and came to your board and went to the county weekly and have made hay out of this, saying that, you know, why is MST charging these homes specifically, but not specific homeowners in Marina or in Pacific Grove who aren't part of an HOA. And, my response is because you're in an HOA and you had CCNRs and you should have read those before you signed them. And so we're just kind of stuck there at this point. That's kind of frustrating.
Director Barrera.
Thank you. Mr. Sidorik, I've been in government for a while, and we make big things out of nothing, sincerely. But you mentioned you got a response from Supervisor Askew?
Supervisor Askew was in attendance as an alternate the day that we had a number of East Garrison people happen to show up for
Yeah.
public matters not on the agenda to speak about this issue. I believe it was public matters not on the agenda. And I do know that Supervisor Askew followed up with a email to the county administrative officer. I have followed up with letters. We have not seen anything moving
Yeah, but
forward.
to my question,
Mhm.
here you have a supervisor. I mean, we have 5 supervisors. I don't know if Supervisor Alejo is aware of it. He's our representative. My question here is, we're spinning our wheels. I mean, we're trying to get a simple response, but we're not getting it because we want to be peace builders and we want to meet the need. If we're providing a service, but we're not getting the attention, I think the only way you get attention is you stop doing what you're requesting. Hey, we need to get paid, but you guys aren't responding. That part I don't understand. So, and I hate to use the word political because we're public servants here, right? We're public servants. But I don't understand why we're not getting a simple response to a letter or to an email. But yet we have Supervisor Askew, we have Supervisor Alejo.
I'm fairly certain if I copied a letter to see, I'll have to go back and look, but it's my practice to always copy the board member on
Absolutely.
communication, so I would be surprised if I didn't.
Yeah, so see, and the frustration here, there's something going on in Salinas. I want to know about it and I want to get on it quickly, especially if it's affecting the ridership. My question here, and I don't want to be redundant, if we're not getting any response, why are we still, hey, we're gonna provide this, why don't we just stop it? Maybe they'll answer. You understand what I'm saying?
And I would say that's the feedback I want. I'm trying to consider the population that is there right now that's could be transit dependent, and this could be a lifeline.
You know, it is a need, but we're not getting any response from the people that are our partners. So, and it's not about blaming anybody, it's about, hey, can somebody answer my letter or my telephone call? And we're not getting that, and we're doing it over and over again.
Expecting the same result.
And here we're trying to figure out a way how to do it. We can't figure nothing out because nobody's responding. If they're not responding to Supervisor Askew, imagine that.
Yeah, and I don't know,
You're stuttering there.
yeah, there may be things going on between the county and the HOA that I'm unaware of. There may be things going on in closed session. There may be other things going on that I'm just out of the loop on. But I don't know.
And that's okay.
I'm only guessing at this
If you
point.
and I have issues, Carl, it doesn't mean we're gonna stop the buses in Salinas. What I'm saying, whether they have internal issues, that's on them.
Right.
But here we're trying to provide a service, and for some reason, we're not getting any attention. So what?
I'll follow up again after this meeting
Let's
and
play hardball here, Carl.
Okay,
Director
I can do
Fisher.
that.
And thank you for the presentation. I agree with all the previous speakers. We need to get the money that they are obligated to pay. But I'm against punishing the people who live there. We're in the business to provide public transit. And I've mentioned before this line 61 that goes only every 2 hours. For me, that's not providing good public transit. I would like to look into increasing, at least to do it hourly. And this bus, of course, this line also goes through Marina. And I'm always baffled when I see a bus stop only on one side of the street. It's like on Marina Heights right now, people can get on, but you cannot get off.
Yeah.
How do you think people are going to use that if they don't have other transportation? So I'm throwing in something else here, and this is not related to the payments, but I would really like us to look into what we can do to increase the service on this line for the veterans. Once I gave a veteran a right, it was not for 61, he had to go to the other way to Sand City, but he had to wait there for 15 minutes, 50.
Wow.
And I have to go to Costco, so I said, well, I usually don't pick up men at bus stops, but
Yeah.
so this is just to show people like, no, this is not, coming from Europe. This is once every 2 hours, you miss your bus. You have to sit there for almost 2 hours.
Right.
So that might explain the low ridership. And also the expensive homes, lots of people rent rooms. People who don't have a lot of money, they are sharing the $1 million homes. So besides trying to get our money, and I think it has been explained to the HOA that they can sell those bus passes, they buy them, but they don't have to give them away, they can sell them to their residents, to their members. For a discount or not, it doesn't even have to cost them anything, as long as they have at least 5 people who buy a pass each month. So it's a bigger issue, I think, than just getting our money back.
Director.
So just a couple of things. One is, I think we do need to look at our policy when it comes to how we support low income housing projects. Because we are getting used, because that is part of the grant. And honestly, they should be providing a bus pass for every unit they built on a monthly basis. And that would be much more beneficial to the people in those units and at the most cost-effective manner. The number of households in the complex is important because if it's a couple $1,000s a month in operational cost, there's 500, we're only talking a few dollars a month per unit for the HOA to collect. So it is frustrating to me too as well. And to confirm, this was a carve out for this development to have the transit in there?
The line 61 service in
Yes,
here?
what we see coming in through, was that built on? That wasn't part of our plans originally, is because of what they asked for?
We were getting
Okay.
requests.
And it is only 2, we're at 2 a day on average riders. So. One more thought is, sorry to say, I do understand your point, but no, you just cut it off and just say screw it at this point. But secondly, on HOA, they're not.
The MST board
the
has
type of
directed
entity
me
that
to-
we can have a lien against. Is an HOA the type of entity that failure to provide service you can place a lien against?
I don't actually have that answer in front of me.
Okay, and I think that's what we should look at, because if an HOA hires a street repaver as part of the HOA program, it's not the individual household members that are contracting that, it's the HOA that's contracting that. And if they didn't pay that contractor's gotta have some kind of recourse. So I look at the language very similar. And if there's ability for us to place a lien for services rendered and not paid for, I would place that lien until the county and the HOA change the language, and I'd be amenable to them changing that language, because that would make more sense. But at the same time, MST has been used in this system right here, this little piece, by both the low income housing and the overall development. That's where I'm at. I would stop service.
I just want to remind everyone that it's 10 minutes till we have another meeting. We
That
still
was
have
my
another
last
item.
meeting.
Okay,
One
No.
more comment I wanted to make. Lisa did remind me that we calculated early last year the cost of operating through here, and it's about $7,900 a month. So that answers Director
Okay.
Emilio's question.
5 bus passes.
$7,900 a month.
Versus 570.
Uh-huh.
I'd say now.
The
cost of
cost.
our.
5 bus passes.
The cost of service.
$1,600 a bus
Yeah.
pass.
Yeah, one more question that I
Yes.
was going to ask, because speaking about the lien, I know that's what HOA boards can do as a punishment for their members. But they also have a daily fine that they can, is there anything in the language that we could impose a fine? Because that always works for
So,
HOA members.
and this is where there's a bit of an issue. It's a requirement that the county has placed on the HOA to pay or service, MST isn't a party to that. So that's where there's a little bit of a disconnect, which is why we've been pursuing enforcement through the county to then go at the HOA. We can certainly, again, look at other avenues, but we haven't had in-depth discussion of that at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Anything else, Michelle? Any other directors have any more questions? Yeah.
Just a quick comment. I think we should just, I don't think we should just close the service. But I think we should just treat those homes like we would unincorporated homes in Gonzales or Greenfield or King City or Soledad or Marina or whatever. Like, here's some homes, we either decide we're gonna provide service to it or we don't. Like, I wonder if are we treating them differently because of this agreement that we're really not a party to, or should we just go about our merry business and just not worry about this? I mean, you're talking about 5 bus passes a month. I mean, that's $200 a month. We're spending $6,000, $8,000, $7,900 a month, $7,600 a month providing the service. Like, this whole conversation seems weird. Like, let's just provide service or not, and just, it would almost be worth $200 a month to not ever have this conversation again.
So, and that's
And just-
staff's recommendation is by stopping at Chispa and not going into a neighborhood that's not generating ridership.
Yeah.
That's how we're treating it.
Yeah,
Because
so
we're
I
on
think
our way
that's a
from
good,
Salinas to the VA hospital anyway. And
Yeah,
this is on
I
the
think-
way.
Just another stop.
It's a.
Yeah.
I
one
think
more
that's a
stop.
good, to me,
exactly.
that's a good strategy. Like, let's just not have this conversation.
And then it puts it all to bed.
Okay.
And it does.
Do you want us to come back? Do you want this to come back to the full board or not?
Absolutely. I think.
Okay.
I think
And then
it's-
have this conversation.
Oh, you're
again.
gonna be a good future supervisor there. Absolutely, it shouldn't be for the whole board.
Yes,
Okay,
yeah.
should we
Okay,
move on to our next presentation?
let's move on.
All right,
to it.
is staff
Thank you.
clear? As
Yeah.
clear as we can be. We'll figure it out.
Okay,
You can correct us if we get it wrong.
all right. Our next item number 4.4, receive update from the MST Safety Committee, and this is Jared Augusta.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Jared Augusta, Risk and Security Manager here. Morning, board. Yeah, just a quick update. Carl already mentioned the highlight of the 0 preventables for December 2024. It's uncommon that we see that in a calendar month. Typically we'll see 30 days, but you really don't see it in the board's report because it falls between 2 months. So it's really special that we get it and such. It's also a really positive note that we're decreasing accidents within the collisions and within the facilities. We had a high number of these occurrences happening, and we've had a dramatic reduction in those. We also have a reduction in the accidents within the general public. So those have been our 2 primary focuses in reduction in the safety committee. And then the last one would be the mirror hits and swipes. So we're focusing on reducing the mirror hits and swipes, which are commonly your bus first fix accident objects. So poles, trees, our own shelters, our own bus stop flag poles. So we've done
Orange cones.
anything fixed object. It could be a trash can. Yeah, it could be anything that's in the roadway as well. So we are doing well there. We did have some good talks too recently about workplace violence. What we're seeing with the workplace violence is a lot of confusion with passengers that's leading to threats of assault, and then enforcement of policy or rule. So we're doing training with the operators. We're trying to get them to de-escalate situations. We're commonly telling them, take that enforcement out of your vocabulary. Your role is to educate. We want you to educate. And then really we're teaching them the best practices that are coming from NTI and the industry standards as far as de-escalation and dealing with difficult and dangerous people. And that's pretty much it from me, unless you have any
So, I've
questions.
asked Jared about every twice a year, he comes out with a report on safety. And I want him to bring this report to this committee so that it brings safety issues more to the forefront of your board's knowledge. So this is the first of what will be multiple meetings per year, and your board can provide some feedback to him. But we just wanted to up the visibility of our safety program and things that we're doing to your board, not keep it at a staff level.
So next time the safety report will be in our packet.
It will be in your packet.
Which is great.
My apologies.
I don't know. I know, and I just have, do we have a high volume of issues with de-escalation with our drivers? I mean, is it really high?
I would say no overall. We have seen a recent uptick that has kind of spotlighted this for us, definitely. But overall, in my experience, 6 years in the safety department, no, we've done really, really well. And comparatively to other trans agencies, some of our peers, we see them with very frequent occurrences based on population density and just the amount of exposure that they have. But we're fairly safe in that area. We also have the barriers to protect the operators, so we do see a lot of that reduction that other agencies maybe couldn't afford. AC Transit right now is the biggest in the nation, and what you're seeing with them is that they don't have the barrier, so they just don't have the physical protection in place that we do, and that is raising their numbers up dramatically. But you know, we are transit, so we do experience it.
Mhm. Anyone else have comments, questions?
I will forward a copy of the report to this
Yeah.
committee after this meeting.
That would be good,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's a
thank
good
you.
one. Madam Chair?
Yes,
Just-
sir.
Just real quick, 2 seconds. Mr. Augusta, it's great to have you on the MST team, since, I mean that sincerely. I've known you for quite some time, and you're a morale booster, so especially safety is a big issue, so thank you for your work.
Yeah, and if I may, you asked about support. That's one of the things that I really advocate for. Right now, we're doing the workplace violence prevention training, and a big part of that is that they know they have someone they can come to. So I have open door policy. I get people texting me, emailing me, calling me. I respond to them. And one of the things that we do, it's really important too, is that we complete the circle. So a concern comes about, we make sure that we address it, and then we complete the circle by bringing what the what the action plan would be to the employee, so they do feel supported. Because that's very important in safety
critical.
culture. So I
Thank you.
appreciate that comment. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right. I think that we can adjourn, so we have maybe 4 minutes before our next meeting.